now negotiations are on between the CHP and between protesters. And if we can pan down now to the left, you can see just how many CHP officers in riot gear are here. We don't know if they were expecting a larger crowd or not. The last time they came around 2 or 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon, and that was to let people off of the base, to clear the roadway where protesters were standing to allow people to get off the base. Now it's 6 o'clock, so we're not sure why they're here, if they're trying to get people off the base again or not. But again, this is a pretty large development. As for the other news you were talking about, that comes from Mayor Barbara Lee of Oakland, who says that any talk about any deployment of federal officers has not only been canceled for San Francisco, but she's learned it's been canceled for all of the Bay Area. It looks as if scenes like this will not be overtaking the Bay Area, at least not for now. Friday afternoon, Oakland Mayor Barbara Lee said the sheriff spoke to ICE and the deployment of federal ICE and Border Protection officers has not only been canceled for San Francisco, but the entire Bay Area.
The sheriff did confirm, though, that she spoke with ICE and that operation that had been designated by the president has been canceled, and that was for a radius of 40 miles within this area.
And while pleased, the mayor says she knows the Trump administration could change its mind at any time.
Well, we know how this happens, and so we're prepared. We're supporting our immigrant community. We're looking at how to raise additional resources through our Bay Area Fund for our immigrants. And we're asking everyone to really be very clear about the fact that we're not going to allow any outside forces come here to create chaos, and that we're not taking the bait. And we're going to continue to be very vigilant.
The dozens of protesters that remained at Coast Guard Island are also pleased with the decision, but remain skeptical, like Lee.
Obviously, I'm relieved that, at least for the moment, that they are backing down. I'm not sure exactly why. I don't know if I trust why they're doing it.
Anything coming from Trump should be taken with a grain of salt, because the man is a compulsive, pathological liar.
I guess we'll see what happens, and I'm just curious and eager to learn more information about the details of this negotiation and what drew them out of the Bay Area in the first place.
Much of the afternoon was calm outside Coast Guard Island until about 3:15, when an unknown vehicle drove past protesters and onto the bridge leading to Coast Guard Island. Coast Guard members standing atop a makeshift barrier responded by firing what appeared to be non-lethal pepper balls at the ground in front of the vehicle. The driver briefly got out of his car and then got back in, turned around and left the area as peaceful protesters berated the driver for going on the bridge in the first place. And we're back live now just outside Coast Guard Island, and you're watching a development that has just gone down in the last 5 minutes. A whole huge contingent of CHP officers in riot gear have returned here. CHP has been negotiating with protesters. Last time this big contingent of officers came from the CHP was yesterday, when they were trying to allow people who were at Coast Guard Island to leave. They wanted protesters to move out of the road, not stop protesting, but move off to the sidewalk, and they brought in a big contingent of CHP officers in riot gear who moved everybody out of the streets so people who were on Coast Guard Island could leave. Apparently, that is the same instance at this point. They want to allow people to move out of the street, and that is why, as you see behind me, there is a huge contingent of CHP officers. What's different about today than yesterday is there are a lot fewer protesters today than there were yesterday, and that is why they're having this conversation with protesters about how this can end peacefully without the officers pushing through the crowd. Again, what they are saying is they want to allow for egress from Coast Guard Island, which is what they wanted to yesterday. If you remember also from yesterday that when they pushed the crowd to the sides and the sidewalk for a couple of hours, cars were going out of Coast Guard Island, and then as soon as the last car left at 4 o'clock, the CHP left too, and protesters returned to the middle of the street. So that's the situation right now. As you see, CHP officers in riot gear are waiting there, and off to your right to here, you see negotiations going on between a lead CHP officer and protesters regarding how they're going to settle this situation in a peaceful manner. We don't know if they have come up with that.
They're going to try to clear. They're going to try to push to the other side of the intersection to clear cars. They're not going to allow us through IT vehicles coming off. I don't speak for you. I try to compromise.
So as you can see, that is one of the protesters who was negotiating with CHP officers, indicating that they are going to push protesters out of the entryway, and that's where things stand at this point. Again, CHP is now discussing the situation with whoever is in charge of the operation, but it looks like they are going to start to clear the streets momentarily, and that is what is happening right now. Grant?
Right now, vehicles could not leave Coast Guard Island. People are blocking it.
Well, yes, at this point, as I said, there were about 36 protesters, and they've been peacefully protesting right in front of the entrance to Coast Guard Island. That would prevent vehicles from getting out of Coast Guard Island. And apparently what they want to do is they want to allow vehicles to leave again as they did yesterday. That was a little earlier in the day. It seems to be unclear why they have waited this long in the day to do that. But again, they have information that we don't. As you can see right now, CHP is starting their move down the street as we are bringing it to you live on Embarcadero and Denison, just outside of Coast Guard Island. CHP in riot gear moving down the street as they are approaching the entrance to Coast Guard Island. We can tell you at this point, it looks as if most protesters are moving out of the entrance to Coast Guard Island and onto the sidewalk as the CHP had requested. So it looks like this will remain peaceful, at least at this point. But again, that is what this issue has been about. Will they clear the roads so vehicles can move out? Again, this is a very huge contingent of CHP officers. I don't know if they were expecting several hundred people as they had yesterday, but again, at this point, there is a much less of a crowd, and they have been peaceful all afternoon long. Again, they have been blocking the entrance to Coast Guard Island, which is why the CHP has showed up. They have said that they want to be here to allow people to enter and exit the facility. At this point, we don't know how many vehicles there will be entering and exiting the facility.
I'm with the news.
Part of the news?
Yes.
Where exactly do you guys want us to?
We're going to be right here.
We're going to be right here?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want you guys to be in a safe location. Right now, we don't have any statements to release at this time. But what we're going to be doing is just setting up the formation right now.
We're live on the air now. Is this all to get cars to be able to leave Coast Guard Island?
So at this time, the chief can address that situation, but I'm just here to make sure that you guys are in a safe location.
Very good, thank you. A CHP officer who is mobilizing at this point. Again, this situation we have seen before. We saw it yesterday, only there were a lot more protesters. CHP officers lining up in the streets, again, to allow vehicles to leave Coast Guard Island. Protesters have peacefully moved off to the side, to the sidewalk, without any sort of confrontation with the CHP. Yesterday, there was some conflict between them and the CHP. Again, there were a lot more people yesterday. We know one person was detained in that incident. Again, this time, as you can see over on the sidewalk, that's where most protesters have gone, and they are on the sidewalk, the CHP lining up on both sides of the street, and now the first vehicles are coming out, and it looks like the vehicles that are coming out are either employees or they are Customs and Border Protection vehicles. We're not sure what they are. At this point, it does look like most of the vehicles are civilian vehicles, indicating these would be people who are working on the base, and for whatever reason, they are leaving late in the day after 6 o'clock. So here come all of the vehicles leaving Coast Guard Island. And again, presumably what will happen is, as soon as all of the vehicles are out of Coast Guard Island, they will, the CHP that is, will leave the area just as they had yesterday, and protesters will return to the front area of the bridge where Coast Guard Island is. Again, the amount of vehicles that were coming out came out in dribs and drabs yesterday, and it took about 2 hours. Again, we don't know just how many vehicles are on Coast Guard Island that they want to bring out. But again, that's the situation as things stand right now.
Dan, it feels like this was a pretty...
what you're looking at...
I was just going to say, it feels like this is kind of a textbook operation. Like if you were, teaching officers how to handle this, and similarly, if you were leading a protest, if you were trying to keep it peaceful and be able to work with the other side, it feels like this went about as well as possible.
Well, so far, they have not left yet, so it looks like CHP officers are gathering together and getting ready to leave, in that there were not a lot of vehicles that needed to leave the facility, and it looks like the CHP is leaving right now. They brought this large contingent of officers here to allow vehicles that were on Coast Guard Island to clear. Looks like those vehicles have cleared, and now the CHP is leaving. This whole operation taking a little more than 10 minutes.
Are there any other officers that were there prior to the CHP's arrival? Do we have any OPD or any other officers, Alameda County sheriffs, that you've seen?
No, OPD we have not seen in the 2 days we have been here. We have not seen any Alameda County Sheriff's deputies. The only people we have seen are the Coast Guard officers who are up on the makeshift wall partway up the bridge, and those are the only ones that we have seen. But again, CHP officers, as you see, are now leaving at this point. They are heading out. Protesters are remaining on the sidewalk at this point, and now protesters are moving back to the street.